The Mercedes zeropod design, initially ridiculed in the F1 paddock, now finds itself reincarnated in Red Bull's RB20, a surprising turn championed by Adrian Newey. Despite attempts at secrecy, the RB20's unveiling reveals its adaptation of Mercedes' failed concept from the previous year. While media attention swarms around Christian Horner's investigation, the real story lies in Red Bull's adoption of Mercedes' design. Exploring the RB20's innovations and hidden components sheds light on why this adoption spells trouble for competitors. This is Motorsport Junkie, and let's get started. Red Bull became the last of the 10 teams to present their car for the 2024 season. In front of their Milton Keynes headquarters, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, and other team members were present as the new RB20 was revealed. The navy blue color scheme remains unchanged for the livery. While pursuing a more aggressive design approach, Red Bull will hope for consistent performance levels. Its predecessor, the RB19, was extraordinarily successful in 2023, winning all but one of the 22 Grand Prix races. Verstappen claimed 19 of those 22 victories on his way to securing his third Drivers' Championship in Qatar with multiple races remaining. Red Bull will aim to defend their title in the upcoming season with the new RB20 Challenger. It was not really a surprise that the astounding performance of the RB19 meant most teams decided to copy the concept of that car. All the cars unveiled so far have a similar bulbous side pod with a massive lower lip. Every car has rearranged their suspension to try and achieve the same anti-dive effect that Red Bull reintroduced in 2022. This is just how things work in F1. When you demonstrate to the rest of the teams how effective an idea can be, they will want to copy it to compete with you. This has happened throughout F1 history, but there is always a risk in doing so. When you try to imitate another team, they will always be a few steps ahead, innovating on the design you are just starting. So while the other teams launched their versions of the RB19, Red Bull launched their take on the pre-Monaco Mercedes W14. More on what makes that design so exciting in a moment. What exactly has Red Bull done? One of the distinctive features of the new RB20 is the reshaped engine cover, which looks similar to the design Mercedes used last year. Despite this resemblance, Verstappen still considers it to have a Red Bull style. The RB20 also seems to have adopted the narrow side pod inlets that are common on recent Mercedes cars. These inlets were partly hidden under the lights during the car's launch, as were other parts like the floor edges, which had no features at all. Mercedes used a comparable minimalist zero side pod design for the full 2022 season and the start of last year before moving away from it. In summary, while the new Red Bull incorporates some design elements from Mercedes, it still retains an overall Red Bull aesthetic according to Verstappen. That design was scrapped by Toto Wolff early in 2023 when his Mercedes team trailed Max Verstappen's Red Bull by 0.6 seconds in qualifying for the season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix. Just 2.5 months later at the Monaco Grand Prix, Mercedes unveiled side pods resembling Red Bull's RB19. At that point, most assumed Mercedes had abandoned the zeropod concept. Other teams have come up with their own versions of the large lower lip inlet and undercut design that Red Bull has created over the past 2 seasons. However, Red Bull has removed the lower lip on the RB20 and now has a protruding upper lip instead. This upper lip is an extension of the top surface of the side pod. As a result, the RB20 has a large ramp that begins in front of the cockpit and ends just before the rear wheels. This contrasts with the other cars on the grid, whose side pod ramps originate at the back of the cockpit. The RB20 has a tiny vertical inlet below its large upper lip that was not visible at launch. The lights were positioned above the car, leaving a dark space under the lip that revealed no details. But images from Silverstone showed a tight inlet hugging the cockpit side. This is similar to the Mercedes W14's inlet, but with significant differences. The RB20 does not simply copy the W14's zeropod. It innovates on the RB19's undercut side pod, taken to the extreme with the zeropod idea. The Mercedes zeropods had almost no side pod, just a slope from top to floor. The RB20 keeps bulging side pods with an undercut their massive head on, but the inlet is inspired by the zeropod. There must be some benefits to this new design. Red Bull would not have just done it for no reason, so let's try to figure out what those benefits could be. First, it's important to remember the purpose of the side pods. The whole reason there is an opening at the front of an F1 car is to allow air in, which then goes over the cooling system connected to the engine, taking heat away from the engine and out the back of the car. So cooling is the main purpose, but like everything on an F1 car, the side pods need to provide more than just their primary function, so the teams also design them to help with aerodynamics. The Red Bull cooling system layout in the car is somewhat mysterious, but this new design helps make the cooling more effective. With fewer cooling parts, the car is lighter and faster, so if each part cools better, fewer are needed. Having fewer cooling parts also lets you minimize the external bodywork cross-section, particularly in critical downforce zones, which helps reduce drag. With their new side pod design, Red Bull has created side pods that are vertically narrow and sit very low on the car. The top of the side pod starts much farther forward than other teams' designs and incorporates the gully or water slide shape first used by Alpine. Having this large surface with a trough is ideal for aerodynamicists because it directs a lot of air toward the rear axle, diffuser, and beam wing, generating substantial downforce. And Red Bull has achieved this while decreasing the cross-section of the external bodywork to reduce drag. The key to a fast F1 car is minimizing drag while maximizing downforce, which this design accomplishes. The side pods on the W14 are very compact vertically yet extremely wide, creating a massive undercut area between the floor and side pod. This substantial undercut is the most obvious difference compared to the RB20. Mercedes never had such a huge undercut before, which is likely where they went wrong. The undercut directs airflow in two key ways. First, it guides air over the floor edges, which are vital for the venturi tunnels underneath the car. As I've explained previously, the shaped floor edges create air vortices that trap the airflow beneath the floor, expelling it from the diffuser and boosting downforce from the floor and diffuser. Second, the undercut channels air towards the rear axle where it converges with the airflow going over the top of the side pod across the diffuser and beam wing. This all helps optimize airflow. The RB20 has another fascinating modification to the side pods, the large shoulder or cannon that starts where the halo ends and extends back along the car. These cannons house additional cooling equipment. Air entering through the hole in the roll hoop flows through the cannons and exits at the rear. This cannon design takes inspiration from the Mercedes W14. The cannons form an exterior channel from the inlet to the back, channeling air to the rear aero, improving its performance. A key difference between the Red Bull and Mercedes designs is that the RB20's cannons drop more steeply at the rear, releasing air lower than on the W14. This daring design choice, showcased through smart lighting techniques during the launch, conceals intricate details. The RB20's unique side pod inlet, reminiscent of Mercedes W14, incorporates elements of the zeropod concept while retaining the bulbous side pod characteristic of Red Bull. The design aims to optimize cooling efficiency, reduce drag, and enhance aerodynamics, ultimately improving performance. Key features such as the vertically compact side pod, wide undercut, and integrated cooling systems exemplify Red Bull's commitment to maximizing downforce while minimizing drag. Inspired by Mercedes' design cues, the RB20 introduces innovative elements like the shoulder cannons, further enhancing airflow and performance. In summary, Red Bull's RB20 represents a bold fusion of innovative concepts, signaling a potential shift in the F1 landscape. While drawing inspiration from Mercedes' discarded design, Red Bull's adaptation demonstrates their willingness to push boundaries and challenge conventions. As the season unfolds, competitors must reckon with the threat posed by Red Bull's daring engineering endeavors. What are your thoughts on Red Bull's new car? Share your opinions below, and until next time, stay safe on the roads.